What's up, everybody? Metal Dave here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, Jason and I were talking on the topic of Ozzy Osbourne being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame recently. Decided to make a short segment about that. Well-deserved for starters. Let's just get that off our plate. Ozzy has been eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist since about 2000. So 24, 25 years later, he's finally getting recognized for The Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, No More Tears, all those great albums that he did as a solo artist after his time with Black Sabbath. And I think it's well-deserved. The thing that got under my skin was some of the omissions in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech. But overall, it was a great celebration of Ozzy. The cast of characters that came together to perform did it with respect and the reverence it's due. So we talk a little bit about that. But mainly, I just wanted to have a chance to talk about, we're not Ozzy won't be with us forever. Nobody will be. And I think it's great that people are recognized while they're still here to enjoy and appreciate the honor. So.
Yeah, Lemmy gets mentioned, but others who are as worthy, if not more, who did some of the same kind of work Lemmy did with Ozzy, should have, and we'll leave those names out because Dave says it like 6 times.
I say it over and over.
Yeah,
so.
Because, hey, legit, totally legit. Yeah, good little episode today.
Yeah, absolutely. Ozzy Osbourne getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist today on the Talk Louder podcast. Hey. Top of the morning to you.
Yeah, so Ozzy in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So,
let's talk about the performance first, because that's all I have to go on. It didn't see it as it aired, but yeah. I watched the performance, and I watched him, and Jack Black do the speech.
The induction. Yeah. I thought Jack did a great job with the speech. He was definitely the man for it.
I love Jack.
We're going to get into some glaring oversights here in a minute, but just to talk about the performance, I thought it was kind of a shame that Ozzy couldn't do the performance himself. I understand why. I get it. But that was kind of a bummer. It would have been great to see him actually perform. That said, I guess the cast of characters got up there and did the best they could. But I do have to give props to Wolfgang Van Halen.
I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah, I thought it was really symbolic that Wolf was playing the Randy Rhoads Crazy Train solo, because there's a lot of people now that can mimic Randy Rhoads, a lot of great players, and people have studied that stuff for years and decades and whatever, and people can nail it. I get it. But it was so much more powerful and so much more symbolic in my mind that Wolf was doing it rather than another accomplished player.
That's right.
It was kind of like, who better than the son of a guy who was considered one of, Randy's peer. And he did a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah. It's nailed. It's totally nailed. Now, and people can go watch it. Don't take any of our word for all this. I mean, we're just Beavis and Butthead. But the thing is, Randy, and a lot of people this may be a somewhat of an oversight. I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, especially if they're a rock nerd. Those guys, Eddie and Randy, were coming up at the same time.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I want to say that Randy, and this is well documented, there was a Randy Rhoads documentary 2 years ago that I think was narrated by Tracy Guns, and it had a lot of killer old footage. Old L.A., we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
And where Randy was just a guitar player kid in a band that taught at this friend of his little music school, like tiny little music school, and Randy was employed there as a teacher, as far as I recall.
It was Randy's mom's shop.
Oh, what, did she own a music store? I thought it
Yes.
was a music shop. Okay. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you for clarification.
Yeah. It was her business, and he taught there.
Okay.
And later on, George Lynch taught there.
Far
So
out.
yeah, Dolores
Wow.
Rhodes was her name, and I
Okay,
forget
right.
the name of the school, but
No,
yeah.
and I know that you're a huge fan. You're a Blizzard of Oz guy, and
Yes.
the record blew everybody's mind, of course. But when you think about, and they talk about it, people were coming to their guitar lesson, and their teacher is Randy Rhoads, who's not a big name yet,
Right.
but they know that Randy Rhoads can teach them the solo, eruption.
Right.
They know that Randy Rhoads can play eruption because come on. When
Yeah.
you're a guitar teacher, you can show techniques and things to your students who are beginners, and those beginners are like, well, I don't slow down. You're shredding Eddie Van Halen type shit, and I don't even, hi, my name's Jason. What's your name again? And you've already burnt my face.
Right.
That's the introduction between teacher and student. It can be, the student can be a little bit taken aback and go, I'll never be able to do that, So it's a kung fu, right? I'll never be able to break the boards. Well, it's not about breaking the boards, and that's where a lesson should start. So back into it. Hey, can you show me how to play all the Eddie Van Halen solos? Van Halen, Van Halen, Van Halen. And Randy's like, again, you know what I mean? I have to live in the shadow of this, and I don't think that Randy's attitude, I don't know, but all I have to go by is what's been documented about a possible reaction he must have had when people came in and go, I want to learn everything. I want to learn how to do that. And it was Eddie Van Halen. So I think that there was this, they were hitting the ball back over the net, and until it was Quiet Riot, and then Ozzy came to town and scooped him up, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So this correlation and story, where here we are at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the spawn of Eddie Van Halen is playing the
Crazy Train solo.
the intelligence of Randy Rhoads.
Yeah.
He's playing the,
Yeah. I think it was symbolic. You mentioned Tracy Guns. There's a guy who studied Randy Rhoads and could certainly play, Randy Rhoads licks, and it could have got the job done. But there was something about Eddie Van Halen's kid playing that solo at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that was perfect, and he nailed it. So, symbolically and technically, he was the perfect guy for the job, and he did a great job. And Jack Black, of course, in the induction speech, recognized the contributions of Randy Rhoads in the career of Ozzy. And then when Ozzy finally spoke, he also mentioned Randy Rhoads. Ozzy didn't speak for long, and but he did mention Randy. But the glaring oversight to me and everyone else that was watching is the fact that they completely failed to acknowledge Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. And obviously, those are the two guys that played on the Blizzard of Oz album and the Diary of a Madman record.
well, I don't want to say that's a crime, but
It's a crime.
as far
I'll
as
say
me
it.
being a fan, it's a crime.
It's a crime. I'll say it. And then they jumped right over Jakey Lee too. They totally missed recognizing him. That was a chance to acknowledge him, and they totally missed that. And I don't think it was.
They could have invited him to play, probably.
I think it was by design, to be perfectly honest. I bet Sharon Osbourne had to approve that speech before it went out, because there's no way Jack Black isn't going to recognize Jakey Lee. And the contributions of Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, if you've been under a rock, I mean, Daisley wrote all the lyrics for that first couple of records, certainly the first record.
Well, didn't you write a book saying, Sharon, where's my money?
Basically. So this is why I firmly believe that Jake and Kerslake and Bob Daisley were left out of the induction ceremony, is because they've had a rift with Sharon. Lee, unfortunately, is dead now.
Yep.
And to be clear, we're talking about Ozzy being inducted as a solo artist. He went into the Hall of Fame as a member of Black Sabbath back in 2006. we're spotlighting his solo career. And you can't spotlight Ozzy's solo career without giving credit to Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, and certainly Randy Rhoads. And then after Randy Rhoads, of course, you have to acknowledge Jakey Lee and Zakk Wylde. And they did acknowledge Zakk. I'll give them that. But they definitely conveniently leapfrogged right over Daisley, Kerslake, and Jakey Lee. And I thought that was a shame.
Yeah. And Jakey Lee came a little bit later, but it was still kind of the same band. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
Rudy Sarzo's too busy with Quiet Riot to fly in and play a couple of Ozzy songs. You see where I'm going? I mean, this could be a 2-hour episode.
Well, they have to be invited. I mean, and I just assume they weren't invited, or maybe they were in the case of Rudy.
Okay.
Rudy, especially, I think he maintains a decent rapport with the Osbourne camp.
Let's put everybody in the bucket real quick. Let's go through the lineup that was on stage that night. So you had Maynard from Tool.
Yeah.
You had, of course, Zakk. You had Wolf. You had drummer Red Hot Chili Peppers. Come on, what's his name?
Chad Smith.
Chad Smith. Thank you. Sorry, Chad. You had, who was on bass?
I think it was Trujillo.
Oh, I think you're right. You're right.
Yeah, Robert Trujillo.
Yeah, he was not hogging any spotlight whatsoever. Robert was, he was just grooving.
Yeah. And then Jelly Roll came out and sang "Mama, I'm Coming Home."
So I don't even know who Jelly Roll is. I'm sorry. You mentioned people living under a rock. Yeah. I live in a bubble under a rock, whatever. I love comfort food. I still listen to records that I liked in high school. I'm an old man. I'm stuck somewhere in time.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden. So anyway, it's important to just realize do we miss anybody?
Oh, I mean, it was one of these things. Steve Stevens was out there at some point.
Oh, right. That's right.
Billy Idol was out there at some point.
Shit. That's right. Billy Idol. Right.
Who was the other drummer?
Maynard, Billy, Jelly Roll. Who's Jelly Roll again? That was my question to you.
He's like some major star right now, and he's kind of like a hip hop dude. He's kind of like a Post Malone. He's kind of a hip hop dude that kind of edges a little bit into country and southern rock, maybe a little bit.
Okay.
So he's kind of, I don't know. I don't pay a lot of attention to him, but he's a huge star right now.
Okay.
And he came out and he did his best version of "Mama, I'm Coming Home." And
I thought it was good.
It was okay. But, again, it was one of these things where why Jelly Roll? I mean, come on, man.
Well, some people were like, Maynard, why Maynard? So
Maynard and Tool, they have a long running relationship with Ozfest and the Osbourne family. And Jack Osbourne, Ozzy's son, absolutely worships Tool.
Right.
So there's that.
Yeah.
So there is an obvious connection to Maynard and Tool. Not so obvious is the connection to Jelly Roll, except that he's hot at the moment. Okay. And he's kind of a homespun dude, and that song is kind of a down home kind of song. So I get what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But, the biggest offense to me was the fact that they left out some key players in the Ozzy Osbourne solo career. I mean,
yeah. Did they mention that? And this is just me being a nerd and trying to just make sure it gets in there. Anytime I can talk about Lemmy, I will. Yes. Lemmy wrote that song.
Right. And they did, Jack Black did mention Lemmy.
He did. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure because I thought I remembered that. Yep.
So Lemmy got a little shout out. But here's the thing with Lemmy, and this all kind of came crashing down on my head recently when Paul Di'Anno died. I saw something where Eddie Trunk posted something, and we all know Eddie rants against the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so in as far as I'm concerned. But he made the point that when Paul Di'Anno died, one of these days, if Iron Maiden finally gets into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they're now down 2 men. Clive Burr and Paul Di'Anno won't be around to see that honor. which is a damn shame.
Yeah.
And so and speaking of Lemmy, same thing. If Motorhead ever gets in, too late. Lemmy's gone. It happened with Joey Ramone.
Yeah.
So the thing that drives me crazy is you are eligible for the Rock Hall of Fame 20 years after your first recorded work. So Ozzy's first solo album, Blizzard of Oz, came out in 1980. He was eligible in 2000.
Right.
And they waited 24 more years to finally get him in. That's a lot of time, and a lot of time for people to die along the way, and people that should be around to enjoy that moment of recognition.
When did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame open its doors?
I don't know that.
Okay. So we're scheming here, and we're the people who throw the Hall of Fame under the bus, I don't know enough history about, the Hall of Fame to really dig my heels into it, because honestly, I care a lot, and your points are super fucking valid about, Dennis Stratton. I would want to invite him too. He's on the first Iron Maiden record. That record changed people's fucking lives.
Right.
And Dennis Stratton is on the fucking record. So, I'm not going to go back with all the pirates that used to be in the first version of Iron Maiden, but I'm saying Dennis Stratton had something. And it's too bad, but we don't know when they open their doors. So eligible is eligible. So,
right.
The gatekeeping,
right.
You can't mention everybody in the speech, Jack Black and Ozzy Osbourne standing next to one another and having this go between a little bit.
Sure.
You can't, they could have, Jack Black could have talked for an hour about all of this stuff because he knows his shit.
Right.
But you're probably right. You're probably right about Sharon making certain what the phrasing, right?
Yes. And hey, guess what? We're here to honor Ozzy's solo career. He came onto the map with an album called Blizzard of Oz with the song Crazy Train, I Don't Know, Mr. Crowley. And guess who played on those? You're talking about his solo career. He wouldn't have a solo career without Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, and Randy Rhoads. And he only acknowledged Randy Rhoads because they still have a love fest with Randy, and I'm glad they do. Randy rules. I love Randy Rhoads, and he was instrumental, no pun intended, in launching that career. But Bob Daisley wrote all the lyrics, all the melodies, wrote the music with Randy. Lee Kerslake was a major contributor. If you look back at the history of Ozzy, and this is no secret,
they didn't even have
doesn't
Lee.
Really
like
contribute.
The first few months, they didn't even have Lee. Lee came in later. They flew Lee in later.
Yeah, but he was there in time to record the debut album.
Oh, well, he made those records. He's on the first two records.
Yeah, the first two records, exactly. And so, if you look back at Ozzy's career all the way back to Black Sabbath, Geezer Butler wrote all the lyrics, and Black Sabbath, the band, wrote all the music. So then fast forward to Ozzy's solo career, which is what we're talking about, and which the Hall of Fame just recognized. We're talking about a band, and Ozzy's contributions, just be brutally honest, he's the singer. And that's basically it. The music and the lyrics came from other people involved in the band. They made a great team together, but you have to acknowledge the team. And here's one thing that came out of that conversation, or the topic of Ozzy being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And you've mentioned this before on this show, and we've had Max Norman on this show.
Yep.
And Max, of course, produced those first two solo Ozzy records. It was apparent right away when the other people were trying to sing the Ozzy songs, like Maynard and Jelly Roll and whoever else got up and took a shot at singing.
Billy Idol, which was kind of fun seeing him snarl on. I can't even remember what song he did. What did Billy do?
I don't remember what he did. And I loved it.
I just watched it the other day, but
But the point they were all making is you take for granted or you don't give credit to Ozzy as a singer. And
he did No More Tears.
Okay.
Billy Idol did No More Tears.
Ozzy as a singer, you know, he often gets slagged as, you know, not really being a great singer, this or that. Well, I'll tell you what.
They're not fucking listening. The people that slag
if you try to sing along to any of that stuff, especially in his prime, it's difficult, man.
You know, there's some commentary on the video post of that footage from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame performance.
Yeah.
And people are saying exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, it's interesting hearing these singers that I'm a fan of, or whether I don't know shit, or I love all these singers and these classic, you know, stars like Billy Idol, and, you know, I don't know shit about Jelly Roll, but overall, just if I, you know, weren't like trying to write a review, it was fun, and they made it fun, and they looked like fun, and I enjoyed watching that the one time that I watched it.
Yeah.
But some of the comments just popping up as I'm watching it, because it happens sometimes. There's like some kind of algorithm, and those comments will come up, and I'm like, people are talking about these singers and about how it sounds weird hearing these voices, because it sounds like, you know, it sounds sticky. Like their voice doesn't really sell the song the way Ozzy's voice sold the song. Now, you're talking about singer's tone and abilities, and how great of a singer Ozzy Osbourne is.
I'm talking about both, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's still unsung, and will continue to be unsung, because he's not this flashy singer who does all kinds of tricks and shit.
Right.
He's a melody man. He sings melodies. His favorite shit is the Beatles. And that's where he's trying to come from. Even with Sabbath, he was trying to find the right, and, you know, and when he was brand new at the idea of being the front person, not only did he stand on the side of the stage, which was like, wait, what? You know, it's like, it was interesting when Black Sabbath came out, he stood stage left. Iommi was in the center.
Yeah. Okay.
Until all the way till his solo career, he was stage left, which I thought was strange. And I always thought, is he just nervous about his, you know, is it because there's a bar on his side of the stage?
Yeah, I was going to say.
You know, who knows? I'm not going to speculate. I don't want to, I mean, I can come up with my own assumptions, but I don't want to do that right now.
Right, right.
So Ozzy is this really great singer that no one knows he's a great singer. Oh, Crazy Train, I love that song. Oh, Paranoid, I love that song. Oh, Iron Man, I love that song. And that's all they got? That's all most people have, is those 2, 3, 4 songs. So, dude, his range, incredible. There was a time where he sang live performances, seeing him live, I'm in the flesh, seeing him live, or recordings where he's terrible. He's so out of key. He must have been, he was either fucked up or tired, or his voice is shot, or whatever. But I'll see another video a month later, spot the fuck on. So whatever, you know, say what you will, whatever, you know, that live rock and roll, there's no guarantees about what you're going to get just because you paid a lot of money for a ticket.
Yeah.
That's live. That's live.
I think
what if you go to the circus and the elephant dies right in front of you and shits itself? You don't know what's going to happen. We're talking live animals and people and things and cables.
Cover your eyes, kids.
Yeah. You don't know so, you know, that's the beauty of reality.
Well, I think the point they were making, and the point you were making too, is that those songs are not only so attached and identified to his voice, but his voice was a very unique instrument. And I think that because it's not maybe as technical as Robert Plant or Rob Halford or something like that, people kind of dismiss him as a singer. But you try and sing along to Crazy Train, or I don't know, or go back to the Black Sabbath stuff and try to sing that at full volume and keep up with Ozzy.
I have.
You'll be winded.
I have tried.
He actually
I cannot do a good
singer.
Ozzy. It's a lot of work to do a good Ozzy if you're going to sing the song correct.
Yeah.
And, you know, okay, I'll get this off my chest. I'm known for singing in the clouds.
Yeah.
I sing up there, right?
Right. Right.
Well, there's a place in my range where it gets a little sketchy for me, and I have my own way of singing where the bridge is, right? My chest voice, and then my, you know, my Mickey Mouse, whatever, my King Diamond, whatever you want to call it. And that bridge in between is sticky because I'm not a real tenor. That's arguable with some people, but I'm not a real tenor. So I've got my own technique, right? And the point that I'm making is in that place in the middle, that's where Ozzy sings all the time. Well, you know, most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
Hard. It's fucking hard. That's a strange place for me, and as well as other singers. Now, again, back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction performances, I really just, like I said, at first glance, just look, I'm not giving her a full review. I thought everybody did a really good job.
Yeah, I mean, they can only work with the voice that they have, and I get it.
Well,
you know?
I want them to be themselves when you know, all the time, because that's what they're going to be comfortable with. But that's I think
hearing someone else sing a song you're so familiar with and having you go, well, it doesn't quite, it makes you appreciate Ozzy's voice is really all I'm trying to say. He's one of those singers. His voice is so identifiable, and it goes with all those songs. You've been hearing those songs for decades.
Yep.
So of course, when someone else sings it, it's going to sound different, and it's going to make you appreciate. At least it made me appreciate. I didn't need a lot of coercing. I've always appreciated Ozzy, but I think that moment at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, with that many eyeballs on and ears on those songs, it made people realize, wow, Ozzy really is a key ingredient. His voice is really a key ingredient to making these songs the songs we love.
Oh, yeah. Let's do something fun. You know what is going to be seriously missed? And as far as I know, people are not talking about this. This is not a hot topic right now about an Ozzy Osbourne performance, right? Whoever's on the stage. Number one would be his voice. Going to be sorely missed. But the picking up of the guitar player during the solo by one leg and leaning back, and I mean, who does that? No one's doing that. No one does that.
Yeah.
That's an Ozzy move. I'm going to pick up little Randy by one leg and hold him up in the air because he weighs 50 pounds, you know, wet. You know? And then there's the whole, you know, peace sign where he's throwing him in the air. Like, let's go crazy. I mean, that's Ozzy. That's a thing that Ozzy did. No one does that. What is that? That's like a psycho person. That's like a evil cheerleader shit or something. You know what I mean? There's no pom-poms. He's doing peace signs like Nixon or something.
Yeah.
Okay. There's little things that are quirky that Ozzy did throughout his entire career with Sabbath and his solo career that, well, I don't know if he didn't pick up Iommi. That was a Randy thing.
No, that was a Randy thing.
Him and Randy had that thing. I don't think he did Jakey Lee. He didn't do Brad Gillis that way. That was him and Randy. That was a thing that only lasted a few years.
And you're right. It's because Randy was 50 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah. Well, and there were clothes. There was something else going on, right?
For sure.
But, you know, there's little things like that. I know that sounds like a short shopping list, but those are things that are going to be missed. You know, I'm done bagging on the Hall of Fame because it is what it is. And it's like, we don't need a Hall of Fame for me to recall and give respect to the music and artists who made it on my own accord. I mean, I've got my own Hall of Fame. Welcome. Yeah, you know what I mean? So do you. This, you know, we are, I wouldn't even call it nerd collectors as much as it is archivists of things that are wonderful about things that we have fallen in love with, and they just have to be rock and roll related. Now, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is just, you know, we're going to give out some trophies and celebrate the life's work of so-and-so. And everyone's got an opinion about who they need to. Hey, it's their time and their money. They can have whoever they fucking want. So nothing against Eddie. I think that he's got a strong argument, but he's not going to steer their boat. It's right. Their party, and they invite who they want, and fuck you. That's it.
Yeah.
They're not mad at us. Why should we be mad at them?
Well, they're not mad at us, but they're clearly not tuned in to what they originally presented themselves to be. It's called Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay.
It's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And when somebody like Rage Against the Machine or A Tribe Called Quest or somebody like that gets in before Iron Maiden.
This is a whole other podcast. I see your point. I see your point. Let me say this, and people fucking hate it when I say this. If it's got drums, it's rock and roll.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe.
No. When you register a new work of art and you go to your affiliate like BMI or ASCAP or whatever, where you do your song splits, or if you're a solo artist and you wrote everything, if you're Taylor Swift or whatever, you wrote the lyrics and the melody and the music and blah, 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 and you're going to register your songs, okay?
Yeah.
There's two genres. There's two. One's classical and one is everything else.
Okay.
So classical music is its own. It's fucking weird, right? But everything,
it's very weird.
But everything only to someone who likes it to be loud and upbeat and or fast or.
That's saying there's only two kinds of food, pizza and everything else. It just, that's too broad of a category.
But understand that they're just trying to figure if it's got a certain thing about it. And I want to think that and it doesn't say, does it have drums on it? But I wouldn't be surprised if the everything else with drums on it, to throw it in a fucking box. But that's the only gatekeeping that songwriters affiliates who credit who you register your music with when you write a new composition. There's no gatekeeping there other than, is it classical music? No. Okay, and then you go to the next screen. It's interesting. So the little boxes that we put everything in. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I may be the last man standing, the only person that believes this. Surely it's not possible. But as soon as you have kick, snare on a song, country, pop, hard rock, hip hop, rap, whatever box that has a stupid name put on it, if it's got drums, it's probably going to end up, if you're super popular and you're eligible, it's probably going to go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Bob Dylan is in there.
But Bob Dylan, I understand. He's a rock folk artist who came up in the 60s when rock, he was counterculture. He was, he was everything that rock and roll was at the time.
Okay, so he was punk rock.
He was that too.
Yeah, that's my point. That's really my point. But also, country artists are the same as Bob Dylan in a lot of checked boxes.
Yeah. I think it should just be, again, this is another podcast. It could be, it should just be the Music Hall of Fame then. So if it's going to be called Rock and Roll and Mary J. Blige is in there before Motorhead, then it's back asswards. And that's all,
You're too hardcore. I think that you're too
I'm just
hardcore.
Being realistic.
I think that anything that was on Motown can be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because, Chuck Berry,
I'm okay with
from
that.
Chuck Berry to Michael Jackson to Prince to, Prince is rock and roll.
I'm totally, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. But you have all these splinters that go into hip hop and rap and,
I'm just saying
black and
bands,
soul artists, should be contemporary music can be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I get it, but not before Iron Maiden.
You're fucking hardcore, and I love it. I fucking love it.
Well, so here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Just to be clear, there's two headbangers here. No one's questioning who's more metal than the other dude here. I'm just talking about Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and their business, that obviously no one knows their business except they do. So this is like you and me and Eddie Trunk saying kind of the same thing, and I'm being a devil's advocate. That's it.
Yeah. And there needs to be a devil's advocate. You make some valid points. I mean, certainly Prince is, Prince deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He was a rocker. But what my point is, there are bands that define rock and roll more than others that are already in the Hall of Fame. And that's kind of where I reach my threshold. But, as you said, it's their party. They're going to do whatever they want. They always have. They're certainly not going to listen to this podcast and change their mind. So I get it.
Can we talk about Ozzy for?
Let's close with Ozzy real quick.
Before we roll out, I really, there are people that argue with me on this. And that's why I think it's a worthy topic, because it may seem like I'm the kind of guy that loves to argue. I don't. I just think that my mind is really, I'm omnivorous, right? I think that he was chosen by some kind of, this sounds hippie shit, some kind of higher power. Now, it's fine. I don't really believe in that stuff, but it's pretty weird. You think about where he was against all odds, coming from shit, Birmingham, England, where it was a steel town.
Yeah.
He shared a room with his siblings, like 4 kids in a closet. They slept in the same bed and wore the same shoes every day for their entire life till their toes poked out of the tips.
Yes. They came from nothing. Nothing. Yeah.
And they, as far as I know, they had, local refinery type jobs.
Ozzy worked at a slaughterhouse too.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He would cut one up and they'd roll it down. He'd cut another, it was like, whatever. And so
kind of mind numbing. Yeah.
And Iommi apparently worked in the steel mill.
Yeah.
Cutting steel. Yeah. And that's how he lost his fingertips. Anyway, the point is, I don't know. You don't hear about Ozzy taking singing lessons and have this, proper upbringing with, he's going to be a singer, and he's in theater and taking classes. And no, man,
right. Yeah.
It was like working class, like dirt, just family, mom and dad and my siblings, and that's it. And then, I'm going to go hang with the boys and we're going to write some songs and play some gigs and get fucked up. And that was, and then go to work the next day with no sleep. And that was the life. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
But the point,
he willed it to happen. There's no doubt about it.
That's all that I'm trying to say. And you could probably say, I don't know, Lemmy, there's a bunch of, Ronnie Simmons, who we just spoke with. He's born loner kid, willing everything to happen because of what he fell in love with. Ozzy is no different. I'm not judging, but could have had it worse than a lot of motherfuckers. Yeah. And really figured it out and had the support, obviously had this, and still has a support team that is undying, and God bless them.
Yeah, he's
chosen. He's chosen because he's kind of like, he's smarter than everyone thinks he is. Everybody thinks he is, and it's like, no, man.
This whole story you're telling, I can summarize this in one famous Ozzy quote that I always thought was brilliant. You ever see a documentary on him, and he's talking about growing up in the steel mills in Birmingham, England, and working in the slaughterhouse, absolutely coming from nothing, dirt poor. And he says, I'm listening to this music coming out of San Francisco, and they're all hippies and talking about flowers in their hair. And he's like, I've got no fucking shoes on my feet. You know?
Yeah.
So there's the contrast. He's like, what is this coming out of America? They're talking about free love and hippy dippy, and he's over here like got no shoes on his feet. But yeah, he absolutely
Neither
came
did the
from
hippies. But that was by choice.
Yeah, but choice. Yeah.
So
exactly.
if you're working in a slaughterhouse, you got to have shoes on your feet.
Yeah,
and
let's hope so.
And hippies don't eat meat.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
Hippies don't eat meat, man. If you're a real hippie, you got no shoes because you threw them in the garbage because you want to be with the earth, man.
Yeah.
And you don't eat meat. So,
well, the whole reason for the show is I think it's great that they, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame acknowledged Ozzy as a solo artist. It's been a long time overdue. I do think that when the Rock Hall gets it right, they still get it wrong. And I think it's a glaring oversight to omit the names of Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, and Jakey Lee. But
totally fair.
Yeah. But God bless Ozzy. He did not look well during the Hall of Fame ceremony. He was seated most of the time, and could barely speak. God love him. I know he's struggled with his health for a number of years now, but he's certainly given us all a lot of great music going all the way back to Black Sabbath and his solo career. He's definitely contributed a ton to the world of rock and roll and heavy metal. So God bless him for that. And I'm glad he got his due as a solo artist.
This was fun. This was a great episode. I love how we were just kind of playing tennis.
Yeah.
Hitting the ball and like thinking about, what this means and taking pot shots at the Hall of Fame and celebrating Ozzy.
Yes.
It was a good idea. I think this idea we came up with sort of like, ta-da, it was like,
yeah, it was in the news, and it was like, it's timely, and it was one of those things where I just couldn't get over the fact that nobody was giving love to Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake and Jake.
Yeah. Well, I said my piece.
That's the politics of it all.
That's right. I said my piece. You said yours. There's a lot more to it than we have zero control over it.
Absolutely right.
So, but I think that it's fun to talk about, and that I think that the performances and Jack Black basically being part of the Osbourne family as well as the Dio family. There's a lot to say. Yeah. Jack Black's the coolest guy. I would love to meet that guy, man.
Yeah, he was the man for the job. He did a great job, but I as you said, he's a fan. He knows his stuff. So
that's right.
He didn't overlook the people that I said were overlooked. Somebody told him to scratch it from the speech.
Yeah, that scares me. That's even another podcast. We should be writing this shit down. These are some ideas for a podcast.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's it for today. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave. Thanks for listening to us rant on Ozzy Osbourne and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Cheers to you, Ozzy. Well-deserved. We're happy to see you get recognized for your solo contributions to heavy metal. Today on the Talk Louder podcast.